Rise and shine to Sunshine Radio 96.7, Saturday mornings. This is Voice for Veterans and the rest of us who say we support veterans too. News, commentary, information, education, music, and entertainment. New just for you, 96.7. Now, you've heard the rest. Stay tuned for the best. Rise and shine to Sunshine Radio and stay with us all day long.
All right, we're here. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you for tuning in. Of course, this is Keith, the boss of the beach, voice for veterans. And I always say veterans and everybody else. What we have learned is that all of the things that come with veterans, to veterans, for veterans, affects us all, including their willingness to stand and fight when we stood and produced. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is Keith, the boss of the beach, American Veterans Alliance Society for Islamic Veterans, and the new and the very, very new, guess what? U.S. and Latin Veterans Support Embassy. They have hooked us up with a major university, and it's right here, of course, in Florida. And this university is Atlantis University, downtown Miami. And they are an international school here. And they have about half of their students online, and the rest of them are right there in this beautiful building overlooking this great town, Atlantis University. Number two, we have done the best things we can is to continue to support this state of Florida through our radio station, 96.7 FM Sunshine Radio. And of course, that's St. Petersburg, Florida. We thank them for their support to continue to help us all. And it's not about all of the veterans, it's about the veterans and their families, which makes it all of us. None of us have had look back in our history and can say that we don't have somebody who stood for this great country and fought and have veteranization in their family heritage. So we now call it the Veteran Nation. Next year, you're going to be hearing a lot more about it because they're opening offices, of course, right in the Tampa, St. Petersburg area and then already in Miami. And we want to thank them to continue to grow the Veteran Nation. It's all about the families of veterans. How do we get to them? Well, you know that in any war zone or any time you're dealing with that, it's called communication. You got to have that communication system set up so we can all know what's going on in the field and on the battlefield of life. Thank you for paying attention because we have reached out through education and figured out that we need to know a little bit more about where we're going with this thing with communication. I'm going to start right now with Ed Muldonado. He's an FCC attorney. He's a specialist in understanding these things, and he's a great guy. One thing you guys don't know that do have lawyers that are great guys. My son is a lawyer. He's a great guy. But this is Ed Muldonado. If you go up and Google him on his law firm, it talks about the communications and media and FCC licenses. And that's why we bringing him on, because he's supporting the veterans organizations. He's been supporting all of the stuff, and he's been working with doing stuff, of course, with Atlantis University, continue to grow. So I want to say hello, Ed Muldonado. Please talk to the audience.
Well, first of all, Keith, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to your audience and all the vets out there. I've been doing legal work and communications for the last 20-some years. I'm not going to say exactly how many, but for a while. And many of the people that are operating companies, starting new ventures, expanding new ventures, there's vets there, particularly those that are doing things in the radio frequency area. They're taking their skills that they acquired in the service. They're applying them. Likewise, guys in IT, because communications now is more internet than it is traditional, point to point, although that's important. And we're utilizing our devices in a different way than we were in the past. And that has a very clean adoption to some of the ways that logistically things are handled in the service. So I've been working with vets for a while. And, it's a great opportunity that I have here today to talk to you and to them and share whatever I know that might be able to help them.
I will ask one question. I'll try to send them over to you if you got it. But one question is, why do people really do need to work this situation through the FCC and its certification process? Is there a real reason? Because the internet has made some changes. Well, let's go back to the groundwork.
Yeah, well, the FCC basically is involved with two parts of the Communication Act, right? One of it is dealing with telecommunications or communication services. Another part of the act deals with data services, all right, or information services. So in there's also a distinction of what's happening with the internet as opposed to traditional broadcast radio frequency services, whether they be mobile or point-to-point.
Yes.
So there's kind of a division through history that we have, because the Communication Act started way back in 1934 about TV and radio.
Got it.
And it has expanded out since. So when we talk about what does the FCC do, let's say on the communication side, right?
Okay.
First and foremost, they manage the spectrum. That's all the radio frequencies we have here in our country. So they're responsible for making sure everybody gets their access to parts of it through a license.
Okay.
Right? Sometimes that's a broadcast license. Sometimes that's a commercial radio license. Sometimes that's a license to be a mobile provider.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, again, point to point, and then sometimes it's just ordinary telephone service like we use using voice over IP or other areas, right? Okay. The area that's somewhat untouched is the data side, right? Because they've kind of over time have put a moratorium, not a moratorium per se, but they've not touched it as much. They left it to grow. So in this period, you're starting to see where broadcast is moving on to the internet through streaming. Yeah. And that's part of it. So you know, it just depends. It just depends on what you're doing, but there's a distinction between data and traditional broadcast.
Now you guys have heard it from someone who's actually speaking the legal terms for why it's important to get your education, why it's important for you to understand, even if you're coming up and you're a veteran, you're coming out of the Army, you work in communications, it's important that you get involved in what the future is, because data now has made a major shift, even in the radio, even in television. We're all streaming now. Now, my next question is, now that they got this new word out here that describes radio and internet and streaming all put together, it's called podcast. I want you to take a break right now. Do not disappear. We're going to play a nice music for you. It's called I Stand. And we're going to come back with Ed Muldonado. We're going to be grateful for him to tell us now podcast. What does it mean and what can we do with it? Be right back. Stay with us.
We're still the greatest country on the face of the earth, the home of the brave and the land of the free. A lot of young men and women shed their blood around the world and proudly gave their lives for you and me. I stand for the flag, I kneel at the altar, I pray for our nation that it never falters. I hope for our children, I fight for our freedom, and I ain't gonna bow to any man. I stand. I support our local heroes that proudly wear the badge, and the first responders answering the call. I believe that all lives matter, whether black, white, or brown, and I believe in equal justice for all. I stand for the flag, I kneel at the altar, I pray for our nation that it never falters. I hope for our children, I fight for our freedom, and I ain't gonna bow to any man. I stand. rise up and stand tall. If we don't stand united, divided we will fall. I stand. I stand for the flag. I kneel at the altar. I pray for a nation that kid never falters. I hope for our children. I fight for our freedom. And I ain't gonna bow to any man. I stand. I stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, I hope you loved it. I stand. I love that song. I love the way it sounds, and we're going to be continuing more with more music. We have some stuff going with our WVEP Latin division, and I'm down in an area where Latin music does sit well with a quiet conversation. So get ready, and don't forget we're back here talking with the attorney, Mr. Ed Muldonado, who's helping out with letting us have him talk to the people who listen for veterans. You know, a veteran is somebody who's always ready for the next round. So we want to put them into employment, and we're going to be talking about benefits, and we're going to be talking about employment, and we're talking about places they can go to get help. And right now, we're trying to push this industry through education and helping all of our young people and the young veterans find a place in our industry, communications and the media. And a lot of them came out of this when they were in the military. The new word is podcast. And we're going to talk about the difference between two podcasts, a video podcast and the other podcast. Ed, I think I got the cue for you to come on in and see if we can solve these two.
Well, thank you, Keith. Thank you, Keith. Well, one of the things that you want to keep in mind when you're talking about podcasts is this is something that rides the internet more so than some of the traditional communication lines that are regulated by the FCC. Now, that doesn't mean that there might not be future regulation. Long ago, about 1970, the FCC put together what was called computer and data inquiries, right? And they forecasted where the communication services back in 1970, where they may go eventually. And they came up with this word called convergence. And that's when voice, data, and video would all converge onto a single line, where they may have interest as a regulatory body to get involved. Now, presently, they haven't gotten involved. They've been somewhat hands-off with the internet as to certain things if they're not like a voice over IP service or something more traditionally communications.
Gotcha.
So the area of what floats on the internet is somewhat open, right? And streaming channels, for example, are something, a streaming radio channel is something a little more open than traditional broadcasting.
And it's getting to be more popular every day.
Absolutely, because the setup is easy. And it requires less cost. I mean, when you have a radio station or a TV station, you have to pay a lot of money for power and the output to be able to get a certain range.
That's right.
And when you're on the internet, you don't have those costs. So it makes it easier for somebody to upstart than, say, traditional broadcasters.
Well, now you know it. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Ed for coming over. And Ed, do me a favor. Please tell people how to reach you.
I would say the best way if you're trying to reach me is to call my main number, and that's 844-4FCC-LAW. It's pretty easy to remember. You can look me up on the internet. I'm at www.maldonado, that's MALDONADO -group, GROUP.com. And And if anything, give me a call, because I like talking to people before anything. Sometimes, I still pick up the phone in my office. Let's put it that way. So it's nice to know who may need you, and that's part of it.
Well, we want to move this to a standard podcast. I want to be talking to you more about that, Ed. We are also thanking our guys, Joe Bardo down here at 96.7. Joe, you've heard this right here. We thank you for what you do. We know you know about it. Now we have some legal help. If we're running into those people who really want to get in a little bit deeper than we just talk about on the radio. Now you know a little bit more about podcasts. We want to thank Ed for taking the time to come with us. Somewhere very soon we're going to be doing our tribute to our veterans. We have 50 certificates. We're going to be honoring veterans throughout the state of Florida who have brought some of the good stuff. And we're going to go down under the bridge into the hospital and take some of those veterans who are still standing, no matter where their health is, no matter where their wealth is, but they're there, and we want to honor them for that time. And Ed's agreed to be a part of that. So we're thanking him for his contribution to supporting veterans in more than one way. Ed, enjoy the rest of your holidays. Thanksgiving is on its way, and we wish you a happy Thanksgiving. We'll worry about Christmas and New Year's later.
Well, thanks, Keith. It's been a pleasure being with you and your audience today, and anything I can do to help, I'm here for you.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to take another break, and we'll be right back.
Yo, what is your boy Spirit and Destiny on the track?
Destiny Drummer, Mr. Chris Taylor.
Wagwan, yo, one time, big.
Yo soy de aquí, como el coquín, sin mil fronteras soy más feliz. No soy Bad Bunny ni Ivy Queen, pero contigo lo bailo. Baila conmigo, se baila así, porque contigo soy más feliz. A Puerto Rico vamos a vivir y como el coquí cantaremos. Yo quiero que me quieras como yo quiero que me quieras. Yo no soy nueva, soy de la vieja escuela. Si no me tocamos nos vamos abajo de la escalera. Nos afincamos del besito de novela. Es que tú sabes yo no quiero más problemas. Te mando para el trabajo, para casa de tu abuela. No soy princesa ni tampoco una reina. Yo soy la jefa, boricua de pura cepa. Oh na na, oh na na. 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 Nos fuimos, síguelo. Oh na na, oh na na. Oh na na, oh na na. Síguelo. Oh na na, oh na na. Oh na na, oh na na. Síguelo. Oh na na, oh na na. Oh na na, oh na na. Síguelo. Oh na na, oh na na. Oh na na, oh na na.
Don't worry, girl, I'll be right by your side. We gon' dance all night, just come close, hold me tight. Yo, yes you are my cutie girl. Yes you are my beauty girl. Yo, dancing with my favorite girl. The night is young. So, me never gonna let you go. I'll be right here, girl. Blazing. You put me in a serious mood. Yeah, you know it's true. Mamacita, mamacita, amor too. Mamacita, mamacita. Oh na 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 na. Oh na 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 na. Oh na 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 na. Everybody say yo, one time. Oh na 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 na. 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 One time. Oh na 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 na. Yeah. Oh na 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 na. Oh na 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 na. Oh na 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 na.
Destiny Drummer.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking about some really great things. I want to thank Wardell McGee for his continued support. All my girl Susan and the Diva and especially Edwina, who handles all of the stuff with Barry with dignity. When we were talking about information, the two things I always do, don't forget if you got a problem, call the crisis line. Don't forget one other thing, we're always here. VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations. But the one thing we're looking at is how does jobs fit in to this next world around, including technology. I just have to bring Ed Muldonado back one more time because he just gave us some information that we need to know about contracts. Ed, take it away.
Well, one thing that I think is important for veterans to know is that within the state of Florida, if you are seeking a contract with the state, there's a special certification that you can get so that they understand that you are a vet and that you're a veteran-owned or controlled company or service.
Yes, sir.
And for that reason, they give a higher priority when awarding contracts with the state of Florida. Now, you're going to have to register, but once you register, you go into a pool of companies that bid on different projects, and you're given a priority. In addition to that, there's a lot of contracts that are gobbled up, let's say, by the big boys, the larger companies. They get them, but they may not be able to fulfill those contracts completely. And a good way to ease into it as a veteran-owned business or a veteran-operated business is to subcontract with them. That gives experience, and that also gives a knowledge base to the vets out there to be able to compete eventually for bidding the contract itself. And, we're not talking about, every contract being fulfilled. There are best estimates from last year's. There's about 75 million in contracts that went unawarded. So there's opportunities out there.
Is there any kind of conference or any kind of time frame or any one of the other partners that we can give out a name or number that some of our veterans can now start getting prepared for when they can do this? Because we do deal with a lot of veterans who have their own business.
Sure. Well, there is a process. Again, we're focused more on the communication side. So we're looking at the technology businesses, and through my office going into the next year, we can help vets get certified and take a look at what may be available based on their size and capacity. So those are things that we do for our clients, and it just depends what they do and what they want to do. It's not something where it's a standard gallon of milk. It's something that you got to look. What is their company doing? Where's their talent? Where they may be able to integrate it? It may be as a subcontractor, and the names of the contractors are listed publicly. So all of this is stuff that we can coordinate from public information.
Okay. Well, we know our contractors are out there. We know they're going to be looking for some subcontractors now. We know that they're going to give priority to a veteran-run business as long as it's been run correctly and they're registered in the state of Florida with Sundays. They're going to be eligible to at least be looked at for this. This is the kind of stuff that I want my veterans and their families to know, because there's not going to be a lot more of the Amazons and IBMs. It's going to be small business, entrepreneurship. It's going to make a difference in the growth of this great country. Ed, I didn't mean to keep you over time. I want to thank you for taking a minute to explain that again. Now, do me one more time. Give them a way to contact you. One more time.
One more time. It's 844-4FCC
You got it.
All right. And I'd be happy to help anybody that calls us up. And if they got an opportunity, we can help them out. We'd be more than happy to. And we're going to be doing it more and more next year.
Well, we're looking forward to it, and I want to get with you guys and see if we can help you guys create your own podcast so that we can run you on a regular basis. OnTheAirToday.com is the network, and, of course, we'll be broadcasting worldwide. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Been my pleasure, Keith. Been my pleasure. All the best to all the vets out there.
All right, will do. Yeah, I'm down here recording live today at Vibes Radio 1 Studios right here in Opelika. And we're going to be talking about all the Caribbean stuff that goes along. A lot of people don't remember the fact that a lot of the Caribbean families were actually in all of our wars. And they came up here and they fought, and they went back, and some of them married and they brought back. So we have a nice connection with the Caribbean Business Network. They have been making sure that we stay in touch with our veterans throughout the Caribbean and keeping the force in place. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Albert Ferron, his family, Vibes Radio 1. We want to say hello to all of the other people down here who are listening to the best of music. One thing about being in Florida, you get both Jimmy Buffett and Bob Marley. You get all of the new ones and the old ones. And we want to say thank you to Rise Up Reggae, putting reggae back on the world scene again. And I know that this year they have several shows coming. We're looking for hours in our area. And a good friend of ours went to the one in Las Vegas and said it was wonderful. So we want to thank those people. Again, this is Keith, the boss of the beach, boss for veterans. Thank you so much for tuning in to this show. We want to thank, of course, Tim Goodrich, Soundcheck Studios. December 5th is Little Richard's birthday, and I will be doing Little Richard's honorarium because he always supported the vets everywhere he went. And we want to thank him for his service and all of his family. Peyton, the youngest boy in the family, I remember I was in the limousine with Richard when he picked Peyton up when he got out of the military. He was Army. I'll never will forget him coming to the hotel with us, and we all drove out to the house, in Riverside. So, yes, we do have a lot to be grateful for nowadays, and we do want to say thank you. Joe Bardeau, hello, as we know, and my boy Mike Picard. I do Sports Connects with him on Saturday. So, thank you. And we want to say this has been a great show. A little bit more music. Thank you for Ed Muldonado. Don't forget you can reach him through us all the time, rain or shine, or directly through him. He left out his website. He left his website there. Again, this is the best, east or west. Over and out with a shout.
¿Hasta cuándo tengo que esperar para besar tu boca? ¿Hasta cuándo tengo que esperar para tener tu amor? ¿Hasta cuándo tengo que aguantar estas ganas locas de explorar y conocer tu cuerpo de rincón a rincón? ¿Hasta cuándo? Dime hasta cuándo tengo que sufrir en silencio. ¿Hasta cuándo? Dime hasta cuándo tengo que esperar tus encantos. Voy a explotar de tanto que esperar. Voy a explotar de tanto que esperar. Con el fuego de tu amor, mami, me fui a quemar. Ninguna enfermera que me trate de curar, porque eres la receta de mi bienestar. So dime hasta cuándo yo tengo que esperar. Hasta cuándo hay que esperar que seas mío y entregarte de mi vida lo mejor. Hasta cuándo hay que esperar que te decidas a flotar en mis caricias, mi pasión. ¿Hasta cuándo? Dime hasta cuándo tengo que sufrir en silencio. ¿Hasta cuándo? Dime hasta cuándo tengo que callar que te amo. Pero que dime mi amor, ¿cuánto vas a tardar? Ganas que te tengo, te voy a buscar. ¿Hasta cuándo? Dime hasta cuándo. Pero que yo quiero estar en tu vida, porque te quiero tanto. ¿Hasta cuándo? Dime hasta cuándo. Aprovechame, mamita, en mi juventud. Aprovechame, mamita, y no esperes tanto. ¿Hasta cuándo? Dime hasta cuándo. Pero que dímelo, que ya no lo aguanto.
Rise and shine to Sunshine Radio 96.7, Saturday mornings. This is Voice for Veterans and the rest of us who say we support veterans too. News, commentary, information, education, music, and entertainment. New just for you, 96.7. Now, you've heard the rest. Stay tuned for the best. Rise and shine to Sunshine Radio and stay with us all day long.